awesome.
Further proof, were it needed, that more
Is more.
is more.
Hey guys, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here, hello.
Really fun show today. I'm going to let you talk about this one because this is your, you know.
Well, it was a difficult place to start because now we're going to go back from there and it's all going to sound thin and weedy. What you just heard, I believe,
Yes.
was a Marshall 1987X 50-watt Plexi reissue, a 1961 original Vox AC30, and a Fender Super Reverb reissue from the 90s, I guess, maybe mid-2000s, maybe 2000s, but a modern reissue Super Reverb. Three of the most classic amps ever in history, and they were all running together with combinations of a Bad Bob, a Tube Screamer, and an OCD.
Yep. And with some echo from the echo system and the new neighbour.
Completely killer. I mean, so unbelievably touch sensitive under the fingers, massive sound in the room.
Yep.
Makes me play, you know, makes me feel like I'm playing better than I would otherwise.
And it is literally a wall of sound. I mean, literally.
Every frequency.
It's all there, coming to you from not one spot, but a wall of direction. It's just wonderful. So it's that sort of thing. It's, you're not listening to it, it surrounds you.
Yeah.
You know?
It's three-dimensional, man. So the point of today's video is we so often, Dan and I will talk about, we'll use terms like mid-scoop, mid-pushed in relation to classic amps.
Mm-hmm.
And quite often in the comments, there's one comment in particular, apologies, I've forgotten your name, or at least I didn't write it down, where somebody's lucky enough to be in possession of a really nice mid-60s Super Reverb.
Right.
You know, getting on for the best blooming guitar amp ever made, along with the Bassman, the Plexi, the AC30, you know, the classic amps.
Sorry, I don't know my Fenders that well. The Bassman being is like the tweed, and then because it's still a 4x10, the Super, the Bassman. The Bassman is the Marshall derivative. Or the Marshall is the Bassman
other way around.
derivative.
Yeah,
yes.
so the Bassman.
Okay.
So brief history of Fender amps, tiny little brown things. Doc Kaufman and Leo Fender made guitar amps before they made guitars. Guitar players needed to have more wattage. So
sorry, Simon laughed at tiny little brown things as well.
Oh right,
sorry.
Amps got bigger. Actually, they were, to be fair, some of the early ones were wood, and they were also cream. But anyway, they morphed into what we now know as Fender Tweed amps, which got bigger and bigger and bigger because guitar players needed. I think you can only laugh at this if you've got kids, right?
Sorry, I'm being so infantile.
Yeah, it's great.
That was great. Okay, and
it's
please
all good.
Continue.
They got bigger and they got bigger. The Tweeds got bigger, and then they turned into things like deluxes,
right,
supers, all kinds of different Tweed amps.
And that coincided with more headroom.
They had technology to make them louder, and guitar players wanted to be louder.
Okay.
Then in the early 60s, they stopped being Tweed and they turned into various variants of cream Tolex, brown Tolex. Right. By 63, 64, you get to this.
Right.
So-called blackface because the panel where the knobs is black, but the rest of it is silver, as you can see. Super Reverb was the 4-speaker one by that point. He's still laughing. There's the deluxe reverb, which is the.
I'm so sorry.
Just keep going. Just keep
going.
No.
I'm good.
We're going to get through it. We're going to get through it. The deluxe reverb is the one that everyone knows. That's the one with reverb and tremolo, 22 watts, blah blah blah, and of course the twin reverb, which at that point was, I think 65 watts. Before it became really powerful with four. It might have had 4 tubes, 4 6L6s. Anyway, various famous Fender amps of the blackface period. Perhaps the most iconic of all, in my personal opinion, is a Super Reverb.
Right. Turned
up in 1963 in that form.
Right.
The Vox AC30 turned up in 1959. And the 50-watt Plexi, I believe, turned up in 67.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
So this ain't new.
Yeah.
There's nothing here that's new. However, we are always talking about mid-push, mid-scoop, And back to the point that we had the little brown ones meltdown. A few people have commented, and one person in particular, and I apologise, I didn't write your name down. Felt like because we were describing amps, in particular the Super Reverb as a mid-scoopy amp, how could I correct this? How can I get it back to being flat? And at that point, alarm bells are going off in my head going, no. It's not like it's lacking anything because it's mid-scooped, or it requires certain treatment to get it back to flat, because flat is the last thing you want in a guitar amp. It would sound awful, you know, in the context of what we know as good rock and roll guitar sounds. So I thought, well, hang on a minute then. Why don't we get a Plexi, an AC30, and a Super Reverb, which is, you know, classic amps of all three key pillars of rock and roll history, and just challenge our preconceptions a bit and go, actually, what do we really mean by mid-scooped?
What are we hearing with those amps?
Let's try and put all the kind of accepted wisdom and preconceptions down and go, okay, what are we actually hearing here?
Love it.
And to help us along the way, we have a clean boost.
Cleanish.
Yeah, okay, cleanish boost. Analogman Bad Bob. We have a common or garden TS9 tube screamer, and we have an OCD, because they are cleanish boost, mid boost with overdrive, and fairly full range overdrive distortion.
Yes.
Which react very differently into 3 amps. Plus, we are going to finish with, what about amp in the box then? Can we make the Fender sound like the Marshall? Catalinbread Dirty Little Secret.
Yep.
Can we make the Marshall sound like the Vox? Wampler 30 something.
Okay.
So, with quite a lot of ground to cover.
Yep.
But questions. What do we mean by mid boost, mid scoop and mid boost anyway?
Okay.
How do those 3 pedals react into the 3 amps in the context of mid range? And finally, can we make 2 of these amps sound like 2 of the others using amp in a box style pedals?
Great. Let's do it.
Right, what are we hearing then, Dan? Let's start with, let's go always go that way, shall we?
Yes.
Start with the Marshall. Give us some schwang, no pedals, nothing in. Give me an open E chord on all 3 amps. Yeah, just play something else.
That reverb makes me want to play that amp all day.
I've turned it down a bit because it does make it totally addictive.
Yeah. Just try a little bit of bridge, pick up stuff. Wow.
I'll tell you what I'm hearing. Sorry, we went the wrong way then, but we'll try and keep it up. So in terms of frequencies that spring out to me, having sat there and edited millions of pedal shows and tweaking with EQ and stuff, the Fender in this instance doesn't sound that mid-scooped at all. It sounds like it's got quite a lot of upper mids, so 2, 3, 4K.
Now that we've got a lot less bass on that than we normally would have, is that right?
No, we normally set it at about 3.
Okay.
That's the other thing. We set the amps up to be kind of balanced.
Right.
Sounding.
Yes, okay.
I mean, if you want to hear the effect of turning the bass up and down, have schwang.
Oh, hello. Okay. Right, wow. that's what that sound of that amplifier. Every time I hear it, it's amazing.
So we've definitely done videos where we said, "Oh, the AC30 is really mid-scooped." It's not at all, is it? It's really vowely. It's really vowely. So,
and that is on the normal channel as well. That's not the F86 channel. It's just on the normal.
Yeah. So already it feels like we're already. I'm surprised that they do sound very different, but I'm surprised that take the AC30 out of the equation a little bit. Because I think if you were talking about a traditional top boost channel, you'd be hearing more of that chime. But I think in their sort of rested, non-overdriven states, they're not a million miles apart.
No,
I mean the AC30 is sounding quite vowly today.
Yeah.
We may get into some
interesting. Okay, let me just say the Marshall and the Fender. So there's a similarity in the bottom end, but the top end's completely different. But the top end between the Fender and the Vox, the Fender. So, you know, there's no bottom ends to speak of in the Vox, but there's a that really ultra high top end.
Does the Brilliant channel work in this?
It does. Ow, 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 ow. And just the cut at the end. That's.
So we've put a bit of top end back into the Vox, I believe. Just keep going.
Just when I hear that sound, I want to do the. But as soon as that goes on, I don't want to play that anymore. Isn't that funny?
So so far we could say actually because there is extended bass and treble in the Super, is the impression that there's less mid-range? Is that what it is, or is there actually less mid-range?
Well, let's compare that to the Marshall. There's definitely. There's definitely less mid-range, but it's not as if there's no mids there. It's just in a different spot. Yeah. You know, or the mids in this one are just simply really, really accentuated.
Just while you're saying that, I'm thinking the pedal that we should have on here to maybe put some of this in context is an EQ
pedal. All right. And we're back in the room.
Good. Okay, as you can see, we've added the MXR 10-band EQ, which should give us enough control. So Darren.
That was awesome. Dazza.
Dan and I have something in common in that we both have brothers called Darren.
Is your brother called Darren?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You've never told me that.
I mean, there's many things. Like, I've got an uncle... what's his name?
Welcome to That Pedal Show Family Values.
Yes, anyway, okay, right. So, can we make... We will move on quickly after this, I promise. But we're going to try and get our heads around, first of all, some key frequencies. So, Dan, if you wouldn't mind playing the Marshall. Why don't we start there?
Yep.
I'm just going to show you some key frequencies when Dan plays so you can get an idea of what we're talking about.
So, okay. Wow.
So for me, bass on a guitar is anything from 150, 125, 100 down. And what's interesting about that is if I put up the really low ones, 31.5 and 62, you shouldn't hear much.
Just a little bit of sub. Wow.
The key bass frequency for a guitar is 80 to 125. Here we go.
Yep.
Then we get into what I would call low mids. So 200 upwards, which is all usually the kinds of frequencies you have problems in rooms with. Muddy frequencies, nasty room reflection sounds, sound a bit like this.
Very interesting.
So if your 125 and down is kind of balls and bass, your 250s, your 500s are kind of what I would call body.
Yep.
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 I'm gonna.
No, it's good. I kept it appropriate. I'm proud of myself.
Totally ruin him by the end of the video. And interestingly, 500 I believe is one of the Tube Screamer's key frequencies. So if you just play for.
Yeah, right.
Hear how that's really vocal when you put up 500? Yeah. Next, we're getting into what I would call upper mids and where they meet treble. So 1K should still be pretty vocal.
Yep.
As we get into 2 and 4K, 2 and 4K is such an important part of the guitar frequency. It's what helps you cut through a band. Quite often I'll find that if we've got a mic that isn't on the cone enough and it just needs, I will push a little bit of 3.2K, which is a really lovely frequency for cut, as I'll demonstrate now. And interestingly, just as a quick aside, we'll add some Tube Screamer type overdrive to that, which I believe is this one.
Yep.
So the frequencies that your Tube Screamer missing are 2, 4K,
right,
which you'd get back in your OCD, and then finally 8, 16K is really hair.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. I'm saying
that's one of the most interesting things we've ever done, and we sort of did it as an afterthought.
Yeah, it's what's interesting. I mean, I know this stuff, but when you sit down with an EQ pedal and go through the ranges and stuff, it is always an experience that makes you go, oh, okay, this is really important stuff. Yeah.
So let's see then, bearing in mind what we've just talked about, let's see if we can make the Marshall sound like the Fender just by using an EQ pedal.
Perfect. Okay.
So here's the Fender. in the interest of expediency, we could be doing that all day. The most obvious thing was that there was quite a lot of treble roll-off
Right.
in the Marshall, so added some of that back in. The mids, to be honest, I got a bit confused. I thought I was hearing a honky mid-range in the Fender,
Right.
trying to dial that out in the Marshall, but clearly there's a lot more going on than EQ in the sound of your amp. It's not just EQ, right? Because it's everything else that's in there. But you know, as a sort of 2-minute demonstration, I hope that's really interesting. It's certainly interesting to me to go, oh yeah, of course 500 sounds like that, like you were saying earlier. So let's give. Often when we're talking about mid frequencies, we're talking about them in the context of overdrive.
Yes.
So let's have a quick whip through these 3 overdrive pedals.
Yep. Great.
If we start with the Marshall.
Yep.
I believe we've got Bad Bob, Tube Screamer, OCD.
Correct.
So if I just set up, I'll just flick through them, set up 3 sounds.
Yep.
So. So interesting. Quickly, I'll flick through them again and tell me what you're hearing.
Okay. So the Bad Bob has that really lovely top end that just sort of spanks and pushes through. The top end roll off in the TS9 is amazing, and the sort of the lower mids in the TS9 seems to be accentuating that. The bottom end in the OCD is outrageous.
Well, I think it's pushing this kind of 80 to 125. Yeah. That's definitely what's happening there. All right, more interesting. We'll stay on the Bad Bob. We'll go between the 3 amps.
Okay. That is so cool.
So our friend Headroom has come to the party.
Yep. Wow.
The Bad Bob is making the Marshall and the Vox overdrive, and it's not making the Fender overdrive as much.
No.
It's just making it louder and adding lots of aggressive top end.
Yeah. Sounds amazing though. Such a great sounding pedal.
Tube Screamer.
Okay, turn the Bad Bob off.
Oh, hello.
Every time it's amazing every time. That is my Vox I love. And then add the classic Tube Screamer to that.
But sorry, quick digression. Add the classic Tube Screamer to that. Wasn't this, but That's not the way that Brian May did it, but
No.
it is that vocal
Yeah.
mid. So our little observation about Fenders being mid-scooped is starting to get some context now,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Because we're
yes.
using overdrive pedals that boost the mid-range,
Yep.
accentuate. And as you heard in the AC30, let's just do that again for fun. Compared with the Fender.
It's a great sound. That's a great sound.
Yeah, why? Because the AC30's got a bit of mid-range that the Fender doesn't have. The Tube Screamer is accentuating that, so we can probably say it's somewhere 500 to 1K. Whereas the Fender doesn't have that quite so prominently, and actually the Tube Screamer is putting it back, and therefore it sounds more balanced. Yeah?
Yes, absolutely. It's such a great sound.
I just want to try that with the Strat a sec, because it becomes really interesting with the Strat, especially if, like me, you like the neck pickup thing. So here we are with our Fender Super Reverb. Absolutely classic Fender. I'll go to position 4. It's just
everything that you ever hoped a Strat and Fender would sound like.
the sound of ages.
Perfect.
But the minute you kind of, it's just a bit weedy. Tube Screamer, obviously the thing we all know. It's that.
It's that sound.
It was made
Oh,
to
man.
go together, wasn't it? We'll just try that in the Vox a sec. Oops, what am I doing? What am I doing, Dan? Actually, it sounds pretty cool.
That sounds great.
But it is a lot more vocally,
Yeah.
vocally mid-range. And finally, the Marshall with no Tube Screamer. Actually sounds pretty good.
Sounds good, the Marshall.
Cool
There's-
into the Marshall
yeah.
too.
It's that sound that's going to pop its head out.
Yeah.
You know, but
Doesn't get the, you know, so the Tube Screamer is adding mid-hump on mid-hump.
yes.
In the Vox.
Vox.
In the Marshall, there's more than there is in the Fender, but not as much.
It's because also the bottom end in the Vox is sort of cut off. So all it has is mids.
Yeah.
You know, but because there's an extended bottom range in the Marshall, you've got the mid, it pushes the mids, but sort of leaves the bottom end alone.
Interesting. Okay, OCD then. Let's do a little bit with that.
Okay.
Why don't we try some humbuckers, given that we're getting into rock and we've got a bit more bottom end going on.
All right.
Duesenberg Bonneville, for everyone who keeps asking, Duesenberg sent us this guitar and said, have a go on this. We said, ooh, that's not going back.
It's such a great guitar.
Such a simply good guitar, isn't it? Anyway, right.
So Marshall on a 9.
Play that exact same thing again.
Right. Just
a lot happened there. Simon's having a fit behind the camera because we're just pushing buttons willy-nilly. What happened was we were going through the Marshall, the Vox and the Fender with the OCD. Dan started playing Many of Horror by Biffy.
Dan got carried away.
Started to have a moment. And if anyone who doesn't know, Dan makes Simon's rig. Puts together Biffy Clyro's rig. Simon Neal. And
helps with
Simon's got the kind of setup that every guitarist wants, which is clean, louder, and he calls it big. The big sound.
Big sound.
And what Dan was going for at the end there was he turned on all three amps. Somewhere within that, hopefully, we heard the mid-range and bass characteristics of the OCD through three classic amps. Have we explained what we mean by mid-push and mid...
Yeah, I mean, it's...
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. It's those key frequencies of, let's put some numbers on it. 500 to 2K, really. The vocal... And when I say vocal, I mean vocal as opposed to tinsely stuff on top.
Mm-hmm. Speaking
range of the guitar, which I think... Do you agree? Is that what we mean when we talk about mid-range?
Yeah, definitely. And that's where the guitar lives.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it also lives at 80 and 100.
It does, but those key frequencies, those key mid-range frequencies, if they're not there, you're going to really struggle for this to be amplified.
And just before we move on, I just want to do one thing on what I would call upper mids verging into treble under overdrive.
Okay.
So seeing as you were loving that so much, go back to the OCD through the Marshall. Okay. I am going to show you what 2 and 4K does to overdriven sounds. Dan turned on all 3 amps.
Sorry, I couldn't
end.
help it. What? That's just so good. That's so good.
Huge. Okay.
This guitar is killer.
What I found interesting then was sorry, I'm trying to stay on the game
Sorry,
here.
it's hard, isn't it?
He's
I'm not
getting
helping.
carried away.
I'm not helping.
All the comments will be saying, for goodness sake, just let him get carried away. Simon's going, look, can you hurry up? So I'm in between. I'm like lukewarm water here. Fire and ice. I'm trying to get to a point. We're excited because it sounds good.
It sounds
We're
amazing.
excited. OCD's actually got a load of high end in it anyway.
Yeah, it does.
So putting a load of that 2, 4 and 8K back, 4 and 8K was definitely having an effect.
Yeah.
And certainly if you wanted to hear that out from your bass player and drummer, if you're playing riffs, it's really key frequency to get you out under gain.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And related to that, really good way to boost an already overdriving amp, but I'm not talking about that today. So, okay, I hope so far we've put a little bit into context. What does mid-scoop and mid-boosted mean?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, with a clean amp, it doesn't mean anything as much as it does when we're talking about overdrive.
Mm-hmm.
And there's quite a lot you can do with a basic graphic equalizer to, tweak.
Add elements of that into the other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not really to make one amp sound like another.
No.
Because that...
It's so much more than just EQ.
It's more than EQ,
Yep.
right. To wit.
To woo.
What if we do want to make one amp sound like another?
Mm-hmm.
Amp in a box. Now, I'm going to say before we start this, I always kind of grimace a bit whenever I hear the phrase amp in a box, because input section,
Mm-hmm.
gain, EQ, power section, power valves, power transformer, output transformer, sorry, power transformer first, speakers, cabinet. You can't possibly hope to achieve all of that in that. How close can we get?
Okay.
Is that a fair question?
It's a very fair question. So when you're talking before about the difference it makes with gain as opposed to the cleansing, so this is where these will come into their own.
So we need to pick a pedal
Yep.
to drive one of the amps with.
Okay.
Because what we're going to do is we're going to drive an amp with one of the pedals, and then we're going to use the amp in a box pedal to try and replicate that.
Okay. So let's put the OCD into the Marshall, because that's, for me, that's the sound of rock.
Okay.
Turn back the gain off.
Let's
a bit.
back the gain off.
Let's.
So what are we going to do? We're going to try and replicate.
The OCD and the Marshall, we're going to try and replicate that sound with a dirty little secret into the Fender.
Sound fair? Using the OCD all the time.
Well, no, just the OCD into the Marshall.
But I'm pretty sure the DLS isn't supposed to replace the OCD and the Marshall.
Okay.
It's only supposed to replace the Marshall. So let's see. Let's get some love going here.
Great sound.
So all that is the OCD straight into the Marshall. Can I hear the bridge pickup as well?
It's got that.
So if we just replicate that exactly, OCD into the Fender.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's still a great sound, but what we're missing is the fullness and the warmth.
So let's see what we can add in with the DLS. Is in number 11.
Yep.
Okay, so off you go. This is how they say you should set the DLS up. And we'll also say at this point it is in super lead mode, not in super bass mode.
Right.
They say you should run high treble and middle, bass almost off, in order for it to sound most like a Plexi.
Okay.
That's not working into the super reverb.
No.
So let's continue.
Can never get rid of that top end thing.
No,
in Fender.
I've just hopefully Simon will have edited a lot of that out because we just spent quite a while tweaking. I'm just trying to work out what's on the inside of the DLS because mode switch, presence trim pot. So there's a treble, so you can turn the presence down inside the pedal.
Okay.
So we've probably just annoyed everybody who owns a DLS again, because once again, I'm going to say it's really hard to make a Fender amp sound like a Marshall using
Really?
a DLS. I mean,
Do you use using anything?
yeah, it's not just the DLS. It's so. However, there were points there where certainly some of that compression and gain characteristics.
My favourite sound is just the dirty little secret, just straight into the Marshall. So straight into the Fender. So
Yeah.
there's the Fender with the DLS on it. That's great.
That doesn't sound much like a Marshall to me.
Doesn't
though.
sound like a Marshall, no. So the OCD into the Marshall. It's a great sound, but it's not, it's just, that's what the amp's doing. It's the amp's bright and...
It confirms what my view of what amp in a box means.
Right.
It's a pedal.
It's a pedal.
And it's a blooming good pedal.
Great pedal.
And it sounds great. But will it turn your Fender amp into a Marshall? What are we going to do next? Change the speaker cab? Oh yeah, but it doesn't sound the same because they're not the same speakers. Okay, let's change the speaker cab. Yeah, it doesn't sound the same because of the bright cap on the input of the Fender. Okay, let's change that. Let's replace the Fender with a Marshall, and it'll sound just like a Marshall, right?
Yep.
So, apologies for the mixed moan, but
Mixed moans.
I just think it's very hard for pedals to sound like amps. Finally then, setting the 30-something up for a massive fail. Can we make the Fender, I think this is going to be easier.
Okay.
Can we make the Fender
Sound like an AC30.
sound like the Vox?
Okay.
Now, we're already in difficult territory here because we're using the Vox in the normal channel.
Right. Yeah. Just. That's so good.
Okay, instantly, obviously what the 30 something has got is that sibilancy high end that I would associate with a top boost type channel. Turn it off a sec. 30 and 15 watt modes. Let's just try that a sec. So more headroom, dynamic in the 30, and then more compression as you would expect. Keep going. Well, it already sounds nothing like that AC30 because of the normal channel and all the rest of it. Does it make the Super sound more voxy?
Let's have a go.
Let's have a change of guitar, why don't we?
Okay.
Why don't we go for some slightly closer to cleaner sounds? Why am I doing this? See, I don't know about you, but where I'm just hearing that super vocal mid-range of the AC30, not at all hearing it in the Fender. Is there a way to get there?
Let's have a go.
Where is the bass control, just out of interest?
I've got it at about 11 o'clock.
No, I mean in terms of frequency range. On the 30 something, if you turn it all the way up and all the way down.
Yep.
Because I wondered if that might be more vocally mids, but kind of brings in more of the lower mid, but not. Interesting. Okay, let's go for some drive then on the 30 something into the Fender. I've just turned the bass up on the Fender a little bit.
All of the mid-range is in the boost.
Oh, okay.
So, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, that just sounds weird on the bottom.
So it gives that element of sparkliness and skankiness, but there's that vocally centered frequency that. But it's not. It's
Could we set the amps up differently? Yes. Could we use an EQ pedal? Yes. Could we set the gains up differently? Yes. Could we spend all day tweaking with frequencies, with pots, with not reading the manual properly? With could we do all of the above?
Yeah.
Yes. Are they ever going to sound like the amps?
No. I'm going to go no.
Do they sound bad?
No. They sound great.
Not in a million miles. They sound blooming great, both of them. Some really killer tones in both of them.
Yep.
Do they sound exactly like it? I think not.
Yeah.
I think not.
Yep.
And that's because as we said before, what we're dealing with, the whole of the circuit for a start.
Yep.
6 bits of wood making up a cabinet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 8 or 9 bits of wood making up a cabinet. Speakers.
Yeah. It's a whole thing.
10 years of wear. 25 years of wear. 40, 56 years of wear.
Is it really? Oh, it is too. My goodness.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
That's 10 years older than me. That's crazy.
Okay. So what have we learned? God, do you remember that? We used to say that in the beginning.
What have we learned?
When we were new.
When we were just little bubbas.
What have we learned? We've kind of skirted around. The most useful thing we've done today is gone through the EQ and explained a little bit about.
We put 3 amps on and played the OCD through all 3.
That was the best thing.
That was the best.
That was the best thing. The most useful thing might have been a little
was the EQ.
sojourn down EQ
Yeah.
Avenue.
Yeah.
And then in the context of 3 famous amps and 3 famous types of pedal.
Yeah. And this is why we both own lots of amplifiers. We have the guitars that we like, but I think we both own more amps than guitars.
Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because,
I mean, I don't want to be flippant about it, but I could care less about this.
Right.
I mean, it's my guitar and it's really brilliant and everything, and I seem to connect with it, but I don't love it like I love that or that.
Yeah, right.
You know, which is
That's
really
amazing.
weird, isn't
That's
it?
amazing. I completely understand. I mean,
No, you can't have it. 8,000 comments ago. Well, give it to me then. I do. Don't get me wrong. It's my guitar and it's mine. But
yeah. But
I don't
I'm
feel
saying,
emotionally attached to it like I
yeah,
do those things.
I am. I mean, obviously, I'm very attached to this guitar, but that Vox for me is very special. You know, I can plug anything into that and get the sound. You know, because I have days with this that I struggle. And I think, but anything I plug into that sounds amazing. When I first saw Robin Ford in Sydney, and he had a Fender and a Marshall, and I realised the Fender's never going to sound like a Marshall. Marshall's never going to sound like a Fender. That's why he has 2 amplifiers.
And that's why, hopefully, as we proved in this video, that if you can be asked, have the wherewithal to do so, the venue lets you, your car lets you, your life situation lets you 2 amps. I mean, it just, because one is doing the job that the other one isn't doing, and it's that huge.
Massive.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. It's been a journey.
We've gone around the houses, and I hope we are trying to sort of readdress some preconceptions and some things that we say regularly that maybe are based on prior knowledge and accepted wisdom more than they are about experience today. So that was what today was about.
Yeah,
was asking some of those questions,
because we use these terms all the time.
Yeah.
So what that hopefully changes what we mean. All right, guys, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. We'd really appreciate it. If you want to head over to thatpedalshowstore.com, we have these wonderful new garments. We have the
plum.
The plum. We have a couple of plums in the store. And we have the more pronounced plum and the less pronounced stealthy plums. Massive thank you to our preferred retailers, which in the UK and Europe is
Anderton's Music of Guildford, who have a lovely new website.
Oh yes, and they're doing up their store as well.
Are they?
They are.
That bloody time. No.
They're redoing the inside now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
To all the guys over at Rift City in the USA.
We spent some time there recently, had a wonderful time.
Bunch of legends, thank you so much.
I get Minnesota and Minneapolis confused. One's a city, one's a state. Minnesota's the state, Minneapolis is the city. Sorry to everyone from Minnesota and Minneapolis and New Hope. Go to Rift City there. And
in Australia, it is Pedal Empire.
In Brisbane. Queensland.
Queenslander. Hey. Which I shall be visiting on the 8th or 9th of this, whichever the Saturday is.
Yeah.
Of December 2017, in case you're watching this in the future. Woo! We've just become a YouTube time machine.
Okay, right. Thanks for bearing with us this week. Hope that was interesting. We will see you soon.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye.